All right, so I'm going to call to order the Environmental Concerns Committee meeting for the month of April. We have a quorum today, but it's short numbers, but it's enough. So let's start over here. Just do a roll call.
Rachel Yondel, member.
David Benak, chair.
John Cruiser, member.
Dave Back, member.
All right, we're good there. We have an agenda that everyone should have received from Justin. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I will motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion before we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We have two sets of minutes. I'm hoping everybody got a chance to review those. The last meeting was in March. We have to approve those, but then we also have the minutes from February. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve one of those or both of those?
I can motion to approve both unless they need to be individual approvals.
I think we can do both if there's no discussion on them. So let's just start with both. Do we have a second to approve both?
Excuse me, I'll second that as well.
Okay, so before we finish that with a vote, do we have any discussion, anything that people want to correct or check?
No.
No.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
All right, excellent. We are moving along. Let's jump to the next category, which is communications, which is the opportunity for Justin with the city to give us a sustainability update.
Yeah, so kind of fill in where we came from last meeting and looking forward a little bit. So we held a recycling demonstration event at the Creamery. We handed out recycling containers and worked with residents there to improve recycling rates. We're going to look to do more of this at apartment complexes. It's just a nice way to kind of have a group of people you have ready access to and kind of help them. Support of the Michigan Waterway Stewards, invasive species removal and trash cleanup on March 28th. So we are working from Mayor's Riverfront Park to the golf course there, removing invasive species along the shore of the banks of the Kalamazoo River. We held a plugging event here on the steps of City Hall on April 11th, picked up a lot of trash, pretty decent turnout for that. Then looking forward, April 25th is going to be the next EPS, it's moving beyond EPS now, but the next recycling drop-off event at Mayor's Riverfront Park from 10 to 1. And then Buzz in the Zoo, so that's what replaced No Mo May. It's that kind of more holistic, long-term look at how we treat the urban ecosystem. That's going to kick off on May 16th, partnering with the Audubon Society of Kalamazoo. So we'll be with them at their World Migratory Bird Day. And then June 9th, the Scrap Tire drop-off event from 1 to 7. And registration is required for that. So you can look online, check the view from the curb, and you'll see information for all these events. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Justin, the recycling event on the 25th, is that electronics and the whole gamut, or is that limited?
Yep, no, that's the big one. So it's EPS foam, dental care products, water filters, electronics, paper shredding, and as a pilot, probably for this semester, or maybe this one time, we're accepting like textiles, so stuff that might not be good enough to go to Goodwill, but you don't want to throw it out. We're working with fashion design students at Western to collect that material, and they'll be making clothes and working with that material.
Excellent.
I had a question about the invasive species removal cleanup. Was there any like a weight or yardage of material that was picked up after everyone was done?
No, I don't think that they measured that.
Actually, I think last year he did. At some point in time, he sent out some, and it was a really informal. I think it was more of a guesstimate, but there was something that was published, but it was kind of informal. But it was a while after the event.
Okay, yep. So when Mike sends me info, I'll pass it along.
Did we get a participant count for that event?
Yeah, over 150.
Okay.
Yeah, there's two groups. So there was a trash group and an invasive species group. So some folks worked towards Parchment, picking up trash along the river, and then other folks worked towards Kalamazoo, or deeper into Kalamazoo downtown there, and Face the Species. Yeah, it was well attended, a lot of Western students, a lot of the fraternities and sororities. And Mike works really closely with them.
Very good.
I've got a quick question, and forgive my ignorance, but in paragraph C, right above that, what's plogging?
Yeah, I guess I took that for granted. It's a Scandinavian phenomenon, picking up trash while jogging. So the city provided trash bags, pickers, gloves, and we, put up a tent on City Hall, and then folks came around, jogged around downtown, picked up trash, and we threw it away. So we're looking to do more of those. Again, yeah, that was pretty well attended. About 20 people showed up, jogged around downtown, picking up trash.
Probably works better in places where there's not quite so much trash to pick up and you can do a little bit more jogging, but yeah, it was good to see people doing both. Going to public comment, all right, first, any other questions for Justin, comments before we? Okay, so we're going to public comment, and I realized we didn't check for live streaming. Are we live streaming today? Okay, and then along the same lines, I don't have our call-in number. Is that on the screen for people? I don't see.
I'll announce it now. It's 1-888-382-9556. Again, it's 1-888-382-9556.
So if we have anybody who wants to call in, we have an opportunity for people in the audience. Any callers coming in? Okay, thank you. And if you are trying to dial and want to get a call in, don't worry, we will come back. We have a second public comment period at the end of the meeting, so there will be another opportunity. All right, let's go to reports and see where we are on that for this month. We'll start with the Natural Features Protection Review Board. That's John.
Thank you. I'm going to report on the March 24th meeting because they have yet to have the April. And that primary focus was on the Westgate Sports Complex at 1617 North Drake Road. They broke that down to 2 phases. The first phase, which is predominantly the most of the area, was approved by the board. And the reason it was approved is they came back and they did a redesign of the site layout, because originally they were requesting a variance through the Zoning Board of Appeals because they only had 13% of the woodland cover instead of the mandatory 25%. So they came back and they redesigned it, so now they have the 25%, and that was approved. And that lot itself is, I believe, almost 90% tree cover, so they're still removing the majority of the trees, and I would encourage people to kind of look at that on the site plan review that they have attachment to their minutes. That was pretty much the whole thing.
What was the address on that again?
1617 North Drake Road. It's going to be off of Maple Hill Drive, between that and 131.
And will that come before the Natural Features Protection Review Board again?
Sorry?
Will that come before the board again?
Through the phase 2. They're going through a site plan review process right now, and then they're going to implement phase 2 conversation. But phase 1 was approved by the NFP board.
So if people are interested, they can reach out to the Natural Features Protection Review Board to express their concerns and to get more information?
Yes, I would say they should.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
David, did you have something?
No.
Okay. Any other questions for John on the NFP board? Rita is here, thank you. Just introduce yourself again before we start, and then Aaron Water.
Hi, I'm Rita Chandler. I do not have any updates on air and water at the moment.
Okay. That takes us to wildlife and natural resources. Dave?
So, surprisingly, nothing.
All right. Always good to be able to move quickly. Hopefully that means that there's no crises coming. Rachel, how did things go with the Planning Commission?
Yeah, I have just a couple of updates. The March 25th meeting, I watched it virtually. The first 10 minutes or so, there was not sound, but I think all that was really discussed was Planning Commission nominations for new members, recommendations. They were approved. Just a couple of people termed out, so just filling those spaces. And then for the April 8th meeting, there were a few special use permit requests. There was 915 Washington Ave and 912 Washington Ave. Those were requests, special use permit requests for transitional use housing. Already duplexes there, just being transitioned to be used for houseless individuals looking to transition into longer-term housing afterwards. And both of those were approved. And then the third was at 3810 East Cork Street, and that is, I forget which business was in that location formerly. It was a restaurant, I believe. It's next to the Arby's that is there on that corner right at that roundabout.
Okay.
Quick Trip QT is looking at demolishing that site completely and putting in a gas station at that location, and that was approved as well.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
All right, thank you. Takes us to ELPA, Asylum Lake.
Well, things remain interesting there, although kind of dull. Essentially, the last meeting just focused around the document that I sent to all of you folks, or Justin sent, and everybody's just kind of waiting for the interlocal business to shake out. Essentially, and if you take a look, and I think that's an 8 or 9 page kind of an understanding. It's the recommendation that they're going to be making to that Asylum Lake made to the advisory panel for the interlocal board, which is going to put together the actual operating diagram, whatever plan for the transfer of Asylum Lake to Kalamazoo County. Essentially, there's nothing different or change. Even in the recommendation itself, if everything goes according to plan, basically Western signs off any kind of ownership or management position, gives it over to the county, and the county, and if you take a look through this, it's pretty amazing. They have agreed to, I believe that they have agreed to all of these provisions, but they have to largely just keep running it as it has been. I still don't see what the county is getting out of this, because they are not going to be able to run it as a park. They are not going to be able to charge admission. They're not going to be able to expand anything that's going on down there. It just remains the same. They do get the endowment fund of what, 2.3 million or something like that, that has been set aside for the operation, the cost of running Asylum Lake, and that would also get transferred to the county, but only for the use of Asylum Lake. So seems to be cooking along, seems to be going to happen, but I really don't understand what the county's getting out of this. Although, I will tell you this, it actually, I think, benefits the community in that, as was pointed out, the county has got, obviously, it's an elected commission, and so they are politically responsible. and they have got a Parks and Recreation Board that answers to the county commission, and all of this is more transparent than what I feel Western's procedure is. I mean, because there, with Western, essentially to do anything, you've got to go through the Board of Regents, and that's, I mean, that's, nobody knows what anybody does there. This will be basically local oversight that is responsible to the voters of Kalamazoo County, and is going to be, I believe, much more transparent than what's been happening over the past almost 40 years. So in a way, I think that it's going to be really a benefit to the people who use it. I would also add that the chair of the advisory council has encouraged people that are on that council to go out and apply to sit on the county parks council or commission to advise. Those are appointed positions, so, and there's maybe 1 or 2 openings there now, but in any case, I believe it's going to be more transparent. Still head scratching on what the county's getting out of it, but overall, I think it's a good thing.
I've been thinking about that, the same question. Does the county have the option of using the preserve as, say, carbon credits or development credits to help smooth the way for other projects?
Well, that's a good insight. I wish I had actually had that to ask the county representative, because when I asked him point blank, I mean, what is the county getting out of this? And they said it expands their portfolio of, that they can offer as Kalamazoo County to the citizens, and that's it.
Okay.
So if that is there, it'd be nice to know, but I don't think that it will overall affect the running of the preserve.
Okay. Yeah, like the document that you sent to us, it does look like there is some protections in there for the preserve that I hadn't seen yet, so I think it looks like it's moving in the right direction.
I believe that it is.
I think they have to follow the Declaration of Conservation Restrictions, which is what's the guiding principle of Asylum Lake has always been.
Good.
And you guys did a great job on that. So.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
That's it.
Good. Very good. Parks and Rec, John?
Basically, that was a 17-minute meeting. They focused on staffing. They're hurting for staffing. They were putting a proposal together to, I guess, consolidate a couple of part-time positions into a full-time position. They say that park attendance is up. I think they're using last year's numbers, particularly the city pools. And the only other thing that was kind of addressed, but not really, I'm just going to add it myself, is the question in regards to the farmers market, that oversight being transferred or debated if it's going to be shifted to a new oversight management company or team.
It seems like that, I think that decision's been made.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. Other than that, it was quick.
So Parks and Rec is hurting for staff. It's a terrible time for them to be having staff issues going into summer. Do you know, are they hiring?
They did not. I think that they proposed a budget proposal to the city. Okay. Again, it was very vague, and it was only 17 minutes long.
Okay. I'd just encourage anybody listening who's interested in employment at the parks, just keep watching that just in case those positions come open, because Parks does a lot of really important things, especially in the summertime with their summer programs. Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else on Parks and Rec?
No, I don't.
Okay. Kalamazoo River Watershed Council is really active at the moment. I don't have I can't pull up my notes for some reason, but there are two things that I wanted to point out. Kalamazoo River Watershed Council is looking for donations of kayaks and canoes for people that they can then, clean those up, patch them if they need it, and then use those for their youth programs. They've really expanded their youth programs in the last few years. So if you have a canoe or kayak that you're not using, think about donating that to the Watershed Council. And also, you have to check their website for details, but on April 30th, they're having an event for people to do trailer repairs, and boat trailer repairs, clean and repairs for canoes and kayaks. So if you want to get your boat ready for this year's activities, that they do have something coming up on April 30th. You'll have to check their website for the full details on that, though. Any questions? No. Odor Task Force, no meeting. We don't have Waste Working Group. Native Species, Rachel.
We have our first meeting next week.
Excellent. All right, that wraps us through all of our committees. As you have all seen, we have a new applicant to consider today. Let's go ahead and handle that first. Everybody's got a chance to see those materials?
Yes.
Okay, so the way we normally manage this, is it Catherine or Katie? Katie, do you want to just come up to the microphone? What we usually do is just give you a couple minutes to just talk about why you want to join the commission, and then we'll have a couple questions for you, and then we'll take a vote. Hold on one sec. Is that on?
It's not now. Can you hear me? I can just.
Well, but we need it for the minutes.
Okay. Is this the problem?
Try it a second now.
Can you hear me now?
I had to push my button. Yep.
Okay, all right. I'm Katie Bloom. I moved to Kalamazoo about 9 years ago from South Dakota. And I quickly learned there's a huge difference between South Dakota and Michigan in terms of everything from the outdoors, how you enjoy the outdoors, to how you sustain the outdoors, whether it's your community garden or whether it's your own backyard or it's a preserve. And it was a good introduction. But I think more important is just a little bit of my background. Almost 50 years ago, my husband and I were building a home, and one of the first things we did was pay to have 2 very large trees moved that would have just been cut down. And people asked us, why on earth did you spend that money? You probably could have remodeled your kitchen, which was about 40 years old. And I really didn't have a good answer for it other than because they're beautiful trees and they provide shade. And so that was kind of the start of my enjoyment of the outdoors, living on a small 225-acre lake. And within 10 years, I found myself in a different position. As a homeowner on that lake with children, my children could not swim in the lake because the E. coli counts were too dangerous season after season. And so the county had a meeting and said, well, nobody has ever stepped forward to take the lead and just get this lake cleaned up. Would somebody do it? And all the homeowners, were dead silent. And I started to raise my hand, and my husband nudged me and said, don't do it. But I did. I had no background in biology. I was still working on my college degree. I had no clue what I was getting into, but I ended up leading a task force of city, state, federal groups to provide a restoration project for a 225-acre lake, including having to do all of the water sampling with myself and a few others, having to find out that 100% of the homes did not have a sewer system, were not hooked up. There was no sewer system. We all had holes in the ground. And finding out that the farmers in the area really didn't care about the lake and what went into it from their farmland. So it was the greatest challenge to bring it together, and it was successful. The lake was dredged. The farmers eventually came to realize that this is an opportunity for them. The homeowners, along with starting a nonprofit to run the management of this and heading the task force, I started up a sanitary sewer district to hook up the homes. Also looking at my gray hair, you can probably understand them when I say I might be the grandmother of recycling in my home community back in Sioux Falls. It's because back then, the way we did recycling was a group of us got together and said, you know, we really should not be putting all of this stuff in the landfill. And so monthly we started holding finding a location, and people would drive up and bring all of their recyclables to us, and we would sort them and send them out, and now we have beautiful recycling in many communities. But that's how I got my start. I've started volunteering for the Conservation District a little bit. I've done some volunteering for Asylum, and I'm very involved with native plants in my own community. The highlight of my 9 years was a week ago I had a 10-foot tall bur oak installed in my yard. So I'm pretty passionate about the environment. I'm pretty passionate about doing what we can to make sure that we have clean air and clean water. And I think part of that is demonstrated when my husband said to me, you know, I'm not gonna live, he's older than I am. He said, I'm not gonna live long enough to see that tree even reach 15 feet probably. I said, I didn't put it in the ground for us. So that's kind of my background professionally. I was a nurse and a social worker. And I think probably my strength is bringing people together and finding the people we need to do what we need to have done and directing people in those appropriate directions. Questions?
So thank you. So just a few basics before others ask. Qualifications for being on the committee are that you care about the local environment and that you live in the city of Kalamazoo. Do you live in the city?
I live in the city of Kalamazoo in the Winchell neighborhood. Okay.
And then the other thing that is important to check, currently we meet on the third Wednesday of every month at 4:30. We are working on pushing that start time a little bit later to say 5 or 5:30. Okay. Does that schedule work for you?
Yes, I am retired.
Okay.
So I have some grandchildren obligations, but I have a spouse who helps, so.
Okay.
Yes.
So then I'll open it for questions for colleagues.
Yeah, I have a question. What do you see as the biggest environmental challenge in Kalamazoo?
In Kalamazoo, I think in the years that I've been here, there's two challenges that I think are pretty equal. The odor and the air quality. And I think that is truly a challenge that I did not appreciate until I moved here. And I think the other thing is just the Kalamazoo River and how we protect that. Given that there have been historically some big spills, I have environmental friends in South Dakota who schooled me on what actually happened. They knew enough about it. And so I think those are challenges that are monetary challenges, physical challenges, and healthcare challenges. So they're just wide on how they affect us. And the other things they pour into it, but I think those are the two major.
I don't have any questions. Actually, I would like to. Well, no, actually, one real quick question. When you're back in South Dakota, were there any parks and/or preserves that were in your area? Did you use those, utilize those at all?
Our home was right on a 225-acre lake that included a county park and a state boat ramp. So we were right there. So I was one of the first to organize a cleanup around the lake. It was the only lake for that city to actually use, the largest lake. South Dakota is more in the line of, in the city where I lived, of mostly Sioux Falls, is more in the line with parks than preserves. So when I moved here, it was a big surprise to me to see the difference in, I mean, there's a full park department, and every neighborhood has an outdoor pool and water playground, and the parks here are different, and the way we use the outdoor is different. So that's one of the things that I see as a major difference, is just an enormous parks department and an investment by the city in that type of, I want to call it a lifestyle for children and families.
So in that vein, are you kind of familiar about some of the turmoil, the preserve versus the park? You know, you understand that there's a big difference there, and that there's a lot of controversy that surrounds that?
I do. I actually spoke out on asylum the last few years, where they've had meetings about the parking situation. I help with the neighborhood, lead the way on having parking restored, but I also spoke out on the purchase of the land, which I thought would be detrimental, first of all, to the water quality of the lake, but also the watershed. So I am familiar. I've read everything I possibly can to be familiar with it and recognize the value.
Great, thank you. I have no further questions.
The only thing I have to say is that I will vouch for Katie in regards to her knowledge on Asylum Lake. She was very instrumental in a lot of things that happened there, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
One kind of follow-up to Rachel's question, the biggest environmental issue isn't necessarily the one that you are the most passionate about engaging.
Right.
So is there something environmental related in Kalamazoo that you would like to put your efforts into as part of this committee?
You know, I looked at the list of what you are doing, and I read back on the minutes for the last year, and I really am quite passionate about the native species, the urban landscape, the wildlife and the natural resources, the trees, and the Watershed Council. Those are areas that are of interest to me.
Thank you. Any other questions for Katie today?
Okay.
No.
Okay. So just like logistics and how things work, we'll take a vote, and then assuming we vote in favor of adding you to the committee, that recommendation, our vote is a recommendation to the City Commission.
Right.
So then the City Commission will vote to approve. They've, in my knowledge, never turned down somebody that we've recommended, so it could happen, but not likely. So you're not officially on until then, though you can just assume if we make that recommendation that you'll be joining us next month. And then technically all the terms start on January 1. Okay. So even though you're starting in the middle of the year, you'll have half of your first year is already elapsed.
Okay.
Anything I missed there, folks? Okay, so if you, I mean, we're live streaming, so it kind of is silly, but we do suggest you go stand out in the hallway so we discuss and take a vote, and we'll let you know. Any discussion before we, I guess we should still do it on there. Any discussion about our applicant?
I would just say I think she'd be a great asset to the committee.
Nothing here.
I would agree with that. I know Katie, and she's very passionate, and she's very involved, and she's a doer.
I would say yes. Despite her background not being in the environmental field, she's done a lot of work, and I'm amazed at how much she got going in Sioux Falls, and she's been seems like a active part of her community, whether she was in South Dakota or here, whether it's recycling or with Asylum Lake. I think she's great, yeah.
South Dakota is a tough place to care about the environment.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
First, you know, yeah.
So it sounds like we have consensus, but the next step would be I would need somebody to make a motion to approve her application.
I'll move to approve.
Have a second? Okay. Any discussion?
No.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so there's no reason for further. You want to go grab her? Oh, you got her? Okay.
Aye, Captain.
All right, Katie, I am happy to say that we were enthusiastic about approving your application, and we will send it to the City Commission, and they will, almost certainly say yes. If they don't, we'll make a follow-up recommendation and tell them they had better reconsider. So you're in good shape. All right, so let's go ahead to the next item here, which is Subcommittee Restructuring. My apologies for not sending out information earlier, but I did send out earlier today. I've just resent that list for discussion. Have people had a chance to look at that or think about that? We don't need to finalize this today, particularly because we're kind of short-handed up here, but I do think we need to make a little progress on this at least this month, and then we can do more next month.
You sent something today?
Yeah, it went out today, and I can't check because my internet is completely down now.
Well, my service isn't always the best, and I was out quite a bit of the day, but I don't have anything, so I'm kind of out of my depth to discuss that.
So we can just have a general discussion then to kind of create the context so we can make this productive for next month. What we have I think I've mentioned this a few times before, the committee structure that we have is an organic thing. Some of it is a historical artifact, and those committees have existed for since time immemorial. No one knows when or why they started. Others have been added for specific purposes over the years, and some of those specific purposes have either gone away or lost some of their relevance. But these committees still exist. And we have a lot of committees, and that means a lot of committee reports, which is great, but that's not necessarily the best use of our time. What I would like to do is, and we've talked about this before, is look at this in two groups. One group of assignments we can call liaisons. And that's like what we do with the Watershed Council or Planning Commission or Parks and Rec. These are either governmental or quasi-governmental organizations that we just attend, and so that we can catch items of concern before they have gotten too far for us to be able to weigh in productively. So that would be the liaison role. And then the other is the committees, like we have recently, we worked on putting together that waste working group. We, for a while, had a native plants group that was picking up some traction. But what I would like to avoid is having a whole bunch of really specific issues. So we have month after month, not much to talk about on those. So if we can keep the groups pretty broad, then we can work within those on specific projects or different things that might come up, and we can keep that number smaller. So without getting more specific into what those might look like, discussion on that as a concept.
I don't know that I have much to add to that, but I'm not opposed to that idea. I was just looking over, I think we have 5 that would be considered liaison groups, is that correct? 1, 2, 3, or maybe just 4. And then combining the others into smaller groups.
In this structure, I'd count 6 as liaison.
Okay.
So natural features, planning commission, tree committee, asylum lake,
Okay.
parks and rec, and watershed council.
Yeah,
Yeah, so those
Sounds
are,
good.
just kind of sit in and keep an eye on what's going on.
makes sense.
And then the others are more project-based, essentially.
Yeah, I don't have any opposition to that.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
I would agree. I think the more that we can consolidate things and keep it more general based on the current events, so to speak, I think the better off we would be with our time and energies. For instance, like Asylum Lake Policy and Management Council, since that's in transition right now, maybe that should go into a different subcategory, because I'm not sure how that's going to be handled. I know we as a committee wanted the city commission to reach out to the Kalamazoo County government and see if there was any way that the city of Kalamazoo could still be maintained to that, because that is a big open preserve in the city of Kalamazoo. And also with the native species and urban landscape, I believe those are the consolidating those things would be, I think, a great idea.
I like the consolidation idea. I also have a few other thoughts in my mind, but I'm not opposed to the consolidation.
You want to share your other thoughts?
So I'm looking at the community sustainability plan, and I just want to express that being on the air quality and water part of this, I have been very confused or lost with the ways that people get their reports and updates, and so I understand that with these liaisons, I think that makes a lot of sense to have those programs or those boards have liaisons from our committee and section it off that way. I'm also wondering if there's a way to group sensitivity, exposure, impact, and adaptation strategies across Kalamazoo, so we have a further understanding of what people are doing, whether it is KC3 or institutional organizations. I'm wondering if there is a way to further gain more information from other community or other aspects of this community, environmental aspects.
Yeah, it's a good idea. We'll have to see how that would fit in. But yeah, that's definitely something worth considering. Everything should be on the table here.
Yeah. But I potentially would like to see if there's pretty important in regards to the site plan review. They have a site plan review within the city of Kalamazoo, which is kind of a preliminary to a lot of these things in here. And I think that should be something that we should all be looking at and saying, hey, these are things that are coming up, because I think sometimes we're very reactionary compared to being being ahead of the game a little bit, always playing catch up.
Yeah, and that's the idea with the liaisons, because by the time something gets to the city commission for a vote there, the decision's usually already made.
Yep.
Yeah, so if we want to have real input on something, doing that at the planning commission level or the NFP level or something at those earlier stages, it's much more productive for us to be engaged. So I would suggest that our next steps on this, I can resend that email again. And it would really, we need people to do is just kind of think about what city boards, commissions, et cetera, we should be engaged in observing, and what are the broad level categories that would be productive to keep as working groups or committees.
Would it be understandable to generalize what we have here? For example, the reports that we go over, 1 through 11, it seems as though a lot of them could be zoning and landscape, whether that is trees or parks and rec. And then with the theme of like water, the watershed and the water quality report, kind of grouping those together.
I think that's worth discussion. My thought had been to keep the liaison roles individual and keep the thematic kind of projects as a group. But that's not necessarily the way we need to do it either. We could do combining some of those liaisons. Like I said, I just put this out there for discussion. I want everybody to engage and think about what you all think is best. Any other thoughts or ideas on that at this point?
No.
Okay, let's, I think we might have more conversation on the green zoning preservation than we do on our recommendation to the city on ECC participation. So if people don't object, I would like to just hit that recommendation first.
Yeah, so both those recommendations have been or will be sent to the city commission. It'll come up on Monday, the 20th.
Okay.
And then once it goes to them, we'll hear back.
So both those recommendations are good shape and sent?
Yep, yeah, the clerk has passed them on to the city commission.
Okay, excellent. Same with the fire. Okay, and the fire, I did have one person who attended our meeting last month had emailed me so that she could get a copy of that recommendation. And so I did share that, and I did make sure to let her know that it was a draft copy, but so that she did have that. All right, we're in good shape. Any discussion on any of those old business topics that we might have missed? Then we now move to new business. We don't have anything in this category. Is there anything that is a pressing issue people want to raise at this point?
Nope.
Other than potentially cutting down all the stinky Bradford pears? would not mind that. All right, let's do public comments, and then we'll do commissioner comments. And when we do commissioner comments, we'll have our township friend give a comment if she has one as well. So Justin, can you read, so we're going to go to public comments. Justin, can you read that phone number off one more time?
Yep, the phone number to call in is 1-888-382-0000. 1-888-282-9556. Again, 1-888-382-9556.
While we wait to see if anyone calls in, do we have anybody in the audience who would like to make a comment? No? Then do we have any, no? All right, so let's go to commissioner comments to wrap up. Let's first, associate member, do you want to come give any comment?
Sure,
Yeah,
not really, just welcome.
okay, thank you.
I agree with
Okay, excellent. All right, then let's start down here with Dave DeVec, and we'll make comments.
No comments.
Okay?
No comments.
I do have just put on everyone's radar once again, Earth Day events are going strong. We had some last weekend. We've got some coming up this weekend, potentially rained out, but potentially indoors. KalamazooEarthDay.com. Check out what's coming up this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and then also the weekend of the 25th is going to be very busy. I think there's about 10 different events going on that day. So whatever you want to do for Earth Day, check it out.
The only update I have, Justin, correct me if I'm not able to share this here, but the county is working on creating a new materials management plan, and they meet monthly, the second Wednesday of every month at 2 p.m. at the Road Commission. In May, the meeting will actually be May 20th due to the recycling conference that's here in town, but Chris Broadbent will be speaking at that meeting, talking about the city's composting pilot program. So if anyone is interested in hearing updates on that, that might be a good event to attend, and just to give public input, because that will affect the city of Kalamazoo as well.
Rita?
That sounds good with me.
Just one more thing. You mentioned the city's composting. Justin, has that taken off yet? Because at the Fun Run plugging event, we did go home with a compost bin to play into that system.
Yeah, so the the program's been going about a year now. And yes, what we've been handing out is they're called Sure Close containers. They're containers that are meant to kind of sit on your countertop or kind of in one of your cabinets, where you store the material, the food scraps, and then you use that to kind of take it outside. They're nice. They have a kind of a screened top and kind of keep some of the fruit flies at bay. I keep my compost kind of in an open bowl, and it can get a little bit messy, so these containers are nice. So if you swing by city events, city sustainability events, you should be able to pick up one of those containers while we have them. Supplies are kind of limited, but
I assume if people aren't seeing them at an event, that 311 is a good way to get them?
I'd punt that to Chris. I'm not sure what his distribution is, Chris Broadbent, but they could call 311 and ask where they're going to be. I'm sure Chris would be happy to answer that for folks.
And just any question you have about how the city functions, any questions about code enforcement, any of that, always call 311. You'll get the information pretty quickly. Any last thoughts? All right, folks, we're adjourned. We'll be back next month.